Hello, welcome to another session on software testing. In this video, we are going to discuss how to test a drop-down feature in a web application. And we can start. The first one is verify the presence of drop-down. And the steps are navigate to the page and locate the drop-down. And drop-down is displayed on the page. That is the expected result. We can go to the application, and this is the web application for sample for testing, and we can go to refresh the page, and yes, it's by navigating to the web application we can see the drop down is there, and it having two options, option 1 and option 2. Okay, so our first test case is passed, so we can write same as expected, and our test case is pass. Okay, so the next test case is verify the default values of the dropdown and check the default selected value in the dropdown. So the expected result is the default value matches the specified requirement based on your requirement, and here I example are select an option. In some cases it may be select option depending on your application. Here it is please select an option. Okay, so it is showing the default value as per the requirement, so we can say it is same as expected and status is pass. Then our next test case to execute is verify that all expected options are available. So click on the drop down. The test steps are click on the drop down and list all options. The expected result is all expected options are present in the drop down list. So we can go to the application and check. So once we load the page, we can see two options are there, option 1 and option 2. These are the two values, so it is working as expected. So same as expected, and our test case is pass. Okay, then the fourth test case is verify selection of an option. So the steps: select an option from the drop down. Okay, then the expected result is selected option is highlighted and its value is reflected correctly in the system. So we can go to the application. So I'm going to select an option number 1, so it's highlighted in blue color and it is selected. Okay, so our test case is passed, same as expected. Okay, pass. Then our fifth test case, verify the functionality with the no selection. Okay, so submit the form without selecting an option, that is steps. And suppose in this case error message is displayed if selection is mandatory, that is the first case. So some application is proceed if the selection is optional, that means without selecting any value it is able to proceed. So based on your requirement, either it is mandatory, so the selection of the option is mandatory, so it will pop up a message. Okay, otherwise if it is optional, we need to select any option, it will proceed with the submission. So in our case it is not a submission form, it's a sample application, so you can check on your case. If it is here, you can see the please select option as disabled mode, so it is in this is sample application, that's why. In some cases if it is mandatory, then we will not able to proceed without choosing an application value in your drop down. Okay, so you can check in your application what is that. So we here I writing NA. Okay, not applicable. And verify the drop down behavior for invalid inputs if it is editable. Attempt to enter invalid data into the drop down, that step. And this expected result is system should restrict the invalid data entry or display an appropriate error message. Okay, so here it is not editable format. Some cases some drop downs able to edit the values, so most of the cases it's drop down should be preset values, and not able to edit by the user. Okay, so in our case it is in not applicable case. So I am writing it as NA. Okay, and this is one of the seventh case we are always avoid in many of the traditional case. That means verify the dropdown behavior for invalid inputs, inspect the element and alter the values. Okay, so how we can perform this? We can going to check that. Attempt to manipulate the invalid data into the dropdown field, and system should restrict the expected result is system should restrict the invalid data entry or display an appropriate error message. So how to achieve that checking? This is comes under security aspect also. This is case. Okay, so for that, right click and click on inspect. So we will get a DevOps tool. In that you can highlight it with the drop down. So, okay, so expand that drop down value. Okay, so you can see the two options, option 1, option 2, the preset. Okay, so I am click on the option 2 and right click and duplicate the element. So you can see the same values duplicated, and click on the value and enter 3 and click on the option 2. Because I giving 3 for give some value. Okay, then minimize it. So you can see now three options are there. Actually the system giving one option 1 and 2, but I am manipulated to option 3. Okay, so if the user able to enter the option 3 and submit, it is vulnerable, right? So you can the system need to validate this input value when we submit the form. So you can check on your application if it is option 3 is selecting and submitting form, it should display the error message. Okay, so you can check on your application this aspect of security. Okay, so I'm giving it as NA. In our case it is there is no submission form. Okay, then the eighth this case verify dropdown behavior when disabled. The step are check the dropdown when it is disabled. Dropdown is grayed out and not interactable. In our case it is not applicable because it is interactable. Some cases if is the drop down is disabled mode, we can't able to click, it is in should be in grayed out mode. Okay, so there should be a default values there, so grayed out mode, so we can't able to interact with the drop down. So you can check on your application. Okay, so I am putting it as NA. Okay, and verify the accessibility compliance. The steps are test using screen reader and the keyboard navigation, example tab, arrow keys. The drop-down should be accessible via keyboard and compatible with the screen readers. Okay, so we can check on our application and click on tab. Okay, and click on space. The drop-downs are is expanded, and make the use of arrow and click on enter. It's able to choose the value. Yes, it is interactable with the keyboard. So I can write it is same as expected and result is pass. Okay, and the 10th is verify functionality for dynamic drop down options. Sometimes the drop down may be trigger the filtering option, or one of the drop down is selected, then the second drop down is logged based on the value of the first drop down value. So we can check on your application whether it is triggering the conditions by selecting a drop down value. Okay, drop down update with the correct option based on the triggered options. Okay, so suppose here it is not applicable, here only one option is available. In your case maybe the based on the drop down list, the another drop down list is loading based on the value of drop down 1. Okay, so you can check that one, or based on the filtering by choosing the drop down, the table, the grid may be loaded based on that triggering. So you can check that cases in your case. Okay, so here I writing it as NA. Okay, not applicable. And the last one, verify the drop down behavior for large data set. Okay, so the test steps are: test the drop down with a large number of options. Drop down load the expected result is drop down loads and operate efficiently without delay or crashes. Okay, so here it is not applicable, it having two options only. So sometimes you need to test with a large number of 50 or 100. So when you click on drop down, all values should be loaded. Okay, and there is no issue with the showing the value. That means any cutting or UA issue you need to check with the large number of data. Okay, so we have finished with the test case execution, and hope you enjoy this section. Thank you for watching. We can see another section. Thank you.